Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Carpenter, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come talk to us about this, or come talk with us about this really important issue. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that the world is upside down and on fire right now, and that presents a lot of challenges for travel advisors. So let's just get started here. First, if there's anybody actually who's on that can just leave a comment either on Facebook, LinkedIn, or the YouTube channel, just to let me know that you can hear me and that we're live. It looks like we've got people there, but if somebody can just type "we can hear you," then I'll know that it's not that it's working okay. But in the meantime, oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you all. Grateful for grateful for your help in getting this going. All right. So to get a few things out of the way, this is where you can find me if you need to get in touch with me. I'm not difficult to find. If you've already made your way to my Facebook page or YouTube channel, you know where that is. So the states where I'm licensed may view this as attorney advertising. It's intended to be only for informational purposes. I'm not intending to provide specific legal advice, and by participating in this webinar, we're not creating an attorney-client relationship unless I already represent your business, and I've already seen a couple of you pop on, so nice to see you. And prior outcomes don't guarantee future results. So just because something was decided one way doesn't mean the next time a court looks at it, they're going to come up with the same conclusion. I'm not going to dwell on this, but I'm one of the handful of lawyers in the travel and tourism industry who represent small businesses. I also have some clients in the arts, entertainment, and media industries. I'm admitted to a few different bars, including the United States Supreme Court, but I have clients on transactional matters across the country. And in addition to my law practice, I also own an agency. So I do the same types of things that you all do when you're selling travel to your clients. This is pretty much on every PowerPoint presentation I've ever done, maybe with one or two exceptions, but just starting out the premise that we're selling travel. When we're selling travel, we are operating in a high-risk environment, and there are all these different things that can go wrong when people are traveling. We're going to talk about this middle section, about the things that can happen when clients are traveling, including war, terrorism, extreme weather events, natural disasters. All of those things present risk for our clients, so that's something we all need to be aware of. Recently, that risk has become more acute than ever. So in the past year, we've had a government shutdown and air traffic control shortages that affected travel, extreme weather events, the thunderstorms from last summer, the blizzards that hit the Northeast in this past winter. In the Caribbean, military action against alleged drug boats. The invasion of Venezuela was disruptive to travel. The entire Caribbean was shut down for a period of time for air travel and a lot of cruise travel as well. In Puerto Vallarta, drug cartel activity was stranded some people in that part of Mexico. In El Paso, the airport shut down recently because of drone activity that wasn't really ever clarified very well. And now there is a big war in the Middle East that seems to be expanding and escalating every day. So these are all the things that the travel industry is dealing with that are all outside of our control. I think it's really important for us to try to get out in front of this risk if we can. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. Be careful when you're responding to questions about safety, making sure that your booking terms and conditions have the right language. Travel insurance is super crazy, extra important right now. So you want to make sure that you're handling that appropriately when you're talking to your clients. But most importantly, stay calm, because when you're dealing with things that are stressful, getting into your lizard brain and giving off-the-cuff answers can sometimes create more problems for you than it needs to. So the question that travelers are asking they've asked me this in my travel business, and I know that people are hearing this all the time. Is it safe for me to travel? Is it safe for me to go to Mexico? Is it safe for me to go to Egypt? Is it safe for me to go to Morocco? All of these questions are cropping up. And answering that question with a yes or no answer creates liability for you either way. If you tell a client, yes, it's safe to travel, what if something happens to them? By making that representation to them, you've created risk for your clients. But if you say no and they've got money down on a trip, they're losing money financially based on an answer you gave, which might subject you to responsibility for that loss. So I want to focus a little bit on the fact that you, as a travel advisor, owe a duty of care to your clients. And courts have talked about this in various ways, shapes, and forms over the years. But because you have a duty of care to your client, you are expected to act with a level of skill, care, and diligence that a competent travel professional would use under similar circumstances. So that's the standard, that if you're reasonably competent, what would a reasonably competent travel advisor do? That does not mean that you are supposed to guarantee that a destination is 100% free from risk. It doesn't mean that you have to predict every possible thing that could go wrong when clients are traveling, but it does mean that you need to take reasonable steps to know what the lay of the land is and to pass along reliable information to your clients from the best source of information that is available to you. But you definitely want to avoid making definitive assurances about safety. So here's a sample answer that I might give. These are bullet points, but you would string it together in a conversation, or in your conversation with your client. Your client says, I've got this trip booked, or I'm about to put a deposit down on this trip, or I'm thinking about canceling this trip. Is it safe for me to go to Cancun right now? I've read about this stuff in Mexico with the drug cartels. Now, we all know that Cancun is very far away from Puerto Vallarta. Riviera Maya does not have, has not had recent problems in this area, but that's not the answer that I would give to a client. What I would say to a client is it safe to go to Cancun? I can't really answer that question for you because what I think is safe, you might not be comfortable with. So I can help you look at reliable information so you can make the decision for yourself. I'd suggest that you go to the State Department website, look at the advisories and alerts. I can also tell you what I'm hearing from my supplier partners. I'm willing to make a call to Apple Leisure Group or to Classic Vacations or to Delta Vacations and tell you what I'm hearing from them about what they're seeing in the destination. And we should also talk about travel insurance, because if you haven't put that in place yet, this might be the right time for you to do that. And the takeaway from the answer, ultimately, the decision about whether you are comfortable taking that trip is really up to you. It's a personal decision for you, but I'm going to make sure that you've got the information that you need to make an informed decision. So, practice this, rehearse it, put it into your own voice, into your own words, but get used to saying to the client, I'm not the best person to answer the question about whether you're comfortable traveling in light of the circumstances. You're the only one who can make that decision. Let me get you the information so that you can make an informed decision for yourself. If you say the wrong thing, all is not lost, because in your terms and conditions, hopefully, you have a provision called a complete agreement clause. Sometimes lawyers call it an entire agreement clause or an integration clause, and that can really save your bacon. If you, oops, and there's a typo here. So basically, a complete agreement clause says that this is the full your terms and conditions is the full document. That is the entire agreement between you and the client, that nothing you say to your clients in a phone call or an email or on social media changes what's in your terms and conditions, and that you can go to a court to have those terms enforced if you feel like you need to do that. And when the court sees a complete agreement clause in your terms and conditions, they're not going to pay attention to any conversations that you had, anything you said to your client, because what's in your terms is going to be the real deal, and that's what they're going to go by. If you have subagents, you want to make sure that your ICs are getting their clients to agree to your terms and conditions. If they're selling under your brand, under your nameplate, if you're a host agency and you have hosted advisors, it's up to them to get their own terms and conditions. But if you have an IC subagent who is selling under your brand, you want them to consistently get your clients to agree to the terms and conditions, which are going to have some provisions we're about to talk about. But also hopefully we'll have that complete agreement clause. You want to make sure that the subagents understand how they should answer the question about when clients ask, is it safe to travel, so that they're giving the right answer. You want to make sure that your subagents are also offering insurance as part of the workflow. And there's a lot of chatter on social media about what makes an independent contractor relationship legitimate. There's a lot of tension out there, some high profile cases that have been filed in courts. And I'm seeing a lot of independent contractors that are taking the position that you can't tell me what to do in any way, shape, or form, no matter what, because that's controlling me. I don't think that that's true. I think if you are an agency owner, you have the right to put fences around what your ICs are doing with your business to protect your business. And so if there's somebody out there telling your subagents that they should sue you because if they tell you you have to do this and this, that's control. It's not always control. And so enforcing best practices, in my view, is not exercising control. It's a fine line. You might want to consult with an attorney or look at what's in your contract about that. But telling your independent contractors, as a condition of working under my umbrella, you need to follow these best practices, I don't view that as being exercising control over your ICs. I want to talk about what's in the terms and conditions document, because there are a lot of things in here in a standard terms and conditions document that can protect you in a situation where you're confronting advising clients about risk and safety. So limitations on liability and force majeure, those are two big important ones. So I'm going to spend more time talking about these than I normally would. But a limitation on liability provision, some people frame this as a waiver. That's where you're telling people that because you are the booking agent and not the supplier, that you are not responsible for anything your supplier does or fails to do that causes damages, injury, loss. So, if there's an extreme weather event that's bearing down and the supplier doesn't take steps to protect people, that is not your responsibility, because you're not making those decisions on the ground. You're not responsible for that just because you booked the trip. And your clients can agree in your terms and conditions document that you're not responsible for those risks because they are not within your realm of responsibility. Force majeure is another event. Some people call force majeure provisions the act of God language. So force majeure provisions, that's language that says that you are not responsible for anything that you can't do, that's impossible for you to do because of a force majeure event. Force majeure events are things that are unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of anybody's control. So that could be extreme weather events, natural disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, pandemics, quarantines, power outages, war, terrorism, civil unrest, all of those things which present risk. If you can't do something you're supposed to do because of a force majeure event, you're off the hook. So that could mean something like there's a big storm that rips through your community, it knocks out your power, you don't have an internet connection, and you missed a bunch of payments you were supposed to make. That storm is a force majeure event. And if you have a force majeure provision in your contract, it says you're not responsible for missing those payments. It means that you're not responsible for missing those payments because the storm was unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of your control. For war and terrorism and civil unrest, those types of things are traditionally covered by force majeure policies. Your suppliers are also going to have this language. So I would recommend putting in your terms and conditions a provision that says that the client acknowledges that suppliers have force majeure language. So if war breaks out, or a hurricane hits the cruise port, or the hotel burns to the ground in a fire, or there's cartel activity at the gates of the resort. Those things are unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of your control, and you can put language in your terms that if those things happen, the supplier's terms and conditions apply. You will do your best to try to get a reimbursement for the client, but you're only going to be able to do what you can do. Your role as an agent versus your role as an advisor. That's another example. Just because you sell a trip, you're not responsible for things that happen on the trip, including unforeseen, unpredictable circumstances. Having people understand your role as the agent. You're the booking agent for the supplier, but you're also owing a duty of care to your to your client as their travel advisor. That's important. Advisories to clients. So I'm going to spend a little more time on this. Your terms and conditions would hopefully have language that advises the client that there can be risk when you travel. There could be high crime, there could be COVID outbreaks, there could be war, there could be terrorism, there could be civil unrest, there could be extreme weather events, and that if people have questions about whether it's safe to travel to Mexico, for example, that you're not going to answer that question. Instead, in your terms and conditions, it's going to say that the client agrees that it's their responsibility. You've shifted the responsibility to them. The client agrees in your terms and conditions that it's their responsibility to decide for themselves whether they're comfortable taking the trip. That points them to the relevant government websites where they can get access to the advisories and alerts. And language that says that just because you sell a destination or a product doesn't mean that you're making any representations about it being 100% safe to the clients. And you can also put language in there that if you look at the situation on the ground and feel like it's unsafe, that you can withdraw from the trip, either release the booking to the supplier, make alterations to the itinerary if you feel like you need to make an executive decision. If you're gonna pull the trigger on that clause, call your lawyer first, because how you manage those conversations with the client can sometimes make the difference in terms of whether or not you have a dispute with them. But for example, during the pandemic, the borders were closed, but there were still some commercial flights operating. And I had clients calling me and saying, I've got a traveler and they said they can see the flight online and they want me to book it for them so that they can go to France. And I've told them the border's closed, but do I have to do that for them? Can't I cancel the trip because they're not going to be able to go? So again, like, this is not hypothetical. This actually has happened in recent memory. So your risks and safety advisory is really important. And again, that savings clause is also important. So if you have in your terms and conditions that it's up to them to decide whether they want to take the trip, and then you slip up because you made a stupid mistake and you were talking really fast and you said, "Oh yeah, Mexico's fine. Go ahead, have at it." That does not supplant what's in your terms and conditions as long as you've got that savings clause. Also, advisories about travel insurance, where you let them know that insurance is available. If they have questions about coverage, they should ask the insurance company because that's the best source of information. That it's their responsibility, again, shifting the responsibility to the client. It's the client's responsibility to know what's in their policy and decide for themselves whether they want to take the trip in light of what they, and that it's the client's responsibility to decide whether they've got the appropriate coverage. And that if they submit a claim and coverage is denied, you're not responsible for the denial of coverage just because you sold the policy. So those advisories and alerts related to risks and safety and travel insurance are critically important that you have in your terms and conditions, because this is a contractual agreement between you and your clients. Your clients are agreeing that they understand these things, so they can't come back later and say, "You never told me," or "I didn't know I could buy insurance," or You led me to believe that it was going to be a safe trip. Your advisories are really important on this. Cancellation and refund policies, people need to understand that when they cancel a trip, once they put money on a trip, if they cancel it, they might not be entitled to a refund if they want to cancel or change their plans. And the provisions about air travel, I think it's a good idea to have a provision in your document where the client understands that you are not responsible for all the things that airlines do that upset people, like canceling flights, schedule changes, seat assignments, lost and delayed luggage, all of those things, expiration dates of tickets and refundability of tickets, because a lot of these disruptions really seem to be affecting air travel these days. So all of those different categories are really important with respect to that. Want to talk a little bit about insurance. You want to make sure that in your agency you've got best practices implemented regarding offering insurance, and that it's incorporated into your workflow as a standard thing that you do each and every time when you're working with your clients. What I suggest is building in some duplication in your workflow around insurance. So when I draft terms and conditions documents for people, I make sure that there's a provision in there that the client is agreeing that they understand insurance is available. If they have questions about coverage, to ask the insurer, that you're not responsible for denial of a claim. That's in the terms and conditions document. I also include it in the client agreement. So client agreement is different than your terms and conditions. What I do is the terms and conditions is the boilerplate for all my trips. It goes onto a page on my website. And then I use a client agreement as like a shorter, more user-friendly vehicle to get people to sign on to my terms. Excuse me. So on the client agreement, they check a box that I agree to your terms and conditions, which are located at, and then www. Wherever you've posted it. I also have them agree to my fee structure as part of the client agreement. And then I have language in my client agreement where they check a box on a form at the front end of me working with them, my relationship with them. I understand that insurance is available. My travel agent has talked to me about travel insurance being available. And I understand that if I don't get it through my travel advisor, that I should get it on my own. So that just bolsters the fact that you're having them agree to it in your terms and conditions. They're agreeing to it in your client agreement. I send a quote automatically, whether the client asks for it or not. And if they say, no, I really don't want insurance, then I ask them to send a waiver. There's no magic language to a waiver. I've seen people who have these very complicated, overwrought waivers. All a waiver really needs to say is, I've been offered travel insurance and I've declined to put it in place. That's really all you need to protect yourself. But if you have that duplication built into your insurance system, then you have backup, because sometimes we get really busy. Maybe you forgot to send a quote automatically, even though that's your standard procedure. Maybe they didn't return that waiver to you. You sent them the waiver form and they just ignored it, or even got into an argument with you about whether they have to send it back. So if one or two of those things slip through the cracks, you're picking it up in 2 or 3 other places. So again, that duplication is going to protect you. And insurance, of course, is important if people want to preserve the value of their trip. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between travel insurance and trip protection, because they're not the same thing. Travel insurance, which is usually third-party insurance that you might get through Travel Guard or Allianz or Travel Insured or TravelX. Generally those, and this is very broad strokes because every policy is different, right? But generally, travel insurance covers cancellation for covered reasons. So that could be a work-related reason in some policies. That could be illness of the traveler, death of a close family member. Different policies are going to define that different ways, but cancellation for covered reasons. Some places you can add cancel for any reason coverage, or some people call it CFAR. Cancel for any reason policies are more expensive when you get them through third-party insurers, and they may only cover 50% of the trip cost. So some people feel like that's not really a good value for the client. But travel insurance also covers way more than cancellation in most cases, again, depending on the policy. It could also include things like emergency medical, medevac, trip delay, trip interruption, lost or stolen personal effects, There are lots of different add-ons to a third-party travel insurance policy that you can put in place, again, depending on the policy, depending on the budget for your client, etc. Trip protection, and trip protection is usually what's offered by a supplier. If you check the box at the time that they book, uh, a lot of some suppliers have travel insurance policies that do cover things like medical evacuation and emergency medical. But I think it's more common for suppliers to only offer trip protection, which is really just cancellation protection. Um, Under a supplier plan, cancel for any reason is going to be much more affordable, and it may actually cover 100% of the trip costs. So if if a client's going to want to cancel because they're having a bad hair day, that is one reason why you might want to look at that trip protection, but it also might not provide you with emergency medical evacuation, all of that sort of thing. Um, uh, some supplier trip protection plans return the value of the trip in the form of a future travel credit. And I've seen agencies get into disputes with their clients about whether or not they get a cash refund versus a future travel credit because the client didn't understand it. Maybe the agency didn't explain it very well. And then I've heard clients say, "Oh yeah, my credit card provides an insurance policy." And I am just here to tell you that credit card policies are the worst. If you have a client who's telling you that they're covered by their credit card policy, no matter how much money they're spending in an annual fee, it's not going to be as good as what you get through a third-party travel insurer that has, a Cadillac plan. Um, the reason this is important, especially the cancel for any reason provisions, is because if there's actual disruption, if there's an actual terror attack in the city where your clients are visiting, uh, that's something that might be covered under the trip interruption or trip delay plan of the insurance policy. But if somebody wants to cancel their trip to Cancun because they saw what happened in Puerto Vallarta, that's thousands of miles away, and they might need cancel for any reason in order to do that and preserve their value. So understand the differences between travel insurance and trip protection. Know what those policies cover. I would never recommend describing those policies to your client. Get your insurance company rep on the phone, do a three-way call, have the clients get the information directly from the insurer. That's going to be much safer for you and cleaner for you. I talked a little bit earlier about client agreement. Again, the client agreement is different than your terms and conditions. It's a vehicle to get people to agree to your terms and conditions, your fee structure, but also those insurance advisories and any other provisions that are really important for you to have your clients actually look at. Because as we all know, when you tuck your terms and conditions away on a little page somewhere, rarely, if ever, does the client click through and read the terms and conditions. So if there's something that you really want to put in front of them so that they understand it, put that in your client agreement and make that client agreement part of your workflow. So here's a simple workflow that is designed to protect you from liability. You do the intake call, you send them the client agreement. They agree to your terms and conditions as part of the client agreement. They agree to your fee structure. They agree that they understand that insurance is available. You've gotten that out of the way right out of the gate. You send them an itinerary and a quote. You book the trip. Right after you book the trip, you send them an insurance quote, whether they ask for it or not. And then you follow up with them. If they don't want the insurance, you would send them the waiver form. If there are emerging developments in the destination, like war breaks out, you're going to stay in touch with them so that you're not walking away from them when they need you the most. If people make a bad decision about travel insurance, a lot of times they're going to try to do a chargeback. And so this is essentially a type of fraud, right? A client books a trip and then they try to use the credit card dispute process to reverse the charges. So if a client regrets that they didn't put insurance in place when they had the chance to do that, and they want to cancel their trip, they don't have cancel for any reason coverage, but they want to get out from under their bad decision, they might think, oh, I'm going to get my money back from the credit card company, but they're not getting their money back from the credit card company. When they report a charge, when they do a chargeback, what they're doing is they're telling the credit card company, this was a fraudulent charge. My travel advisor didn't have authorization to use my card to make those payments. And so it's like they're accusing you of credit card fraud, which means that the amount of that disputed charge is probably going to come out of your out of your out of your pocket. So it's a big, big problem. The way to get out in front of those credit card credit card chargebacks is to have a valid authorization for each and every charge. I've pulled these slides from other presentations I've done. I think people are coming around on this, but people still argue with me about it. People still want to do just charge my card you have on file, but you need a credit card authorization for each and every transaction that you process using your client's credit card. It should have the date, it should have the amount being authorized, it should have the supplier or the product being booked, so that if they try to do a chargeback later, you can go to the supplier or to the credit card company, depending on whether it's your fee or whether you've made the payment with the supplier, and you can show them, I had authorization, here's the authorization, this is a legitimate charge, they can't back out of it now. And be careful about how you're storing numbers. Have a good tech tool that will store those numbers for you. Again, I've talked about this a lot lately. The credit card companies are now requiring you to have a few things in your credit card authorizations in order to win a chargeback dispute. The client has to agree to your terms and conditions as part of the authorization language. Your terms and conditions have to have a cancellation and refund policy. And if you recall that earlier slide with the 5 dots, cancellation and refund policies is one of the things that you want in there. And you have to bring your cancellation and refund policies to the client's attention at the time that the charge is being authorized. And again, if you already know this, good, but this seems to still be new information for a lot of people. So I'm saying it again. Here's sample language that you can use. I'm authorizing the agency to charge my card and the amount on this invoice, and I agree to the agency's terms and conditions of booking, which are located at www.wherever you've posted it, including the suppliers and the agency's cancellation and refund policies, which may limit my right to a refund if I cancel or change my plans. So they're agreeing each and every time they make a charge, when they make a deposit, when they authorize a charge, when they make a deposit, when they make a final payment, if they add services, if they pay your fee, if they buy insurance, they're agreeing each and every time that to your terms and conditions that they can't do a chargeback. And so if they decide I want to cancel my trip and, oh crap, I didn't put insurance in place, I'll get my money back through the credit card company. They're not getting their money back from the credit card company. They're getting it out of your pocket, and this is the language that's going to help you. Also, you might want to have in your terms and conditions document language that says that they won't do a chargeback once they've authorized it, because that's super important as well. So I'm going to leave some time for question and answers here, but the key takeaways here are that all of this is figure outable. But a lot of it's going to be you getting out in front of it before you have the problem. So get ready to field these inquiries from your clients. Know how you're going to answer the client who asks you, is it safe for me to go to this country? Even if it's far away from the epicenter of whatever is going on, assuring them of safety is probably not a good idea, because things can spread, right? So just because it's not in Cancun now, just because it's not in Morocco now, doesn't mean that things aren't going to move there at some point in the future. So have your answer set, direct them to the official sources of information, be helpful to them, but don't answer the question. Have the right terms and conditions in place with the provisions that are going to protect you, including a complete agreement clause that says that nothing that you say to your clients in a phone call, in an email, on social media undermines or undercuts those other provisions, like advising them that risks and safety are their responsibility to decide for themselves, that it's their responsibility to get insurance. Always follow those best practices around offering insurance. Make sure you get a credit card authorization for each and every charge that you run on your card, so that if the client has buyer's remorse and they want to get their money back, that they're not doing that coming out of your pocket. And across the board, make sure that your independent contractors are doing all of this as well, because you want them to understand that it's their responsibility to follow best practices when they're booking travel for their clients. So that is what I have for you. Now, this is where you can find me if you need to. And I think I see that there are already some comments that have been coming in. So I'm just going to look at those. Lots of people can hear me. So that's from about 30 minutes ago. Great. Okay. So I know let me see if I can actually put this up on the screen. I know there are many different insurance coverages, but do they normally allow you to cancel for force majeure events? Will it only be covered if you purchase cancel for any reason? So again, as you acknowledge, every insurance policy is going to be different. Force majeure provisions don't necessarily require you to give a refund, and that's one of the things that people don't understand. This is not about insurance, but if you have a force majeure event, just because a trip gets canceled because of force majeure, that doesn't actually require the person who's canceling the trip the tour operator might not give a refund. And so that's why in your force majeure language in your terms and conditions, you're going to have language that says that the supplier has force majeure language and you'll do your best to get a refund. During the pandemic, we were lucky because a lot of, the pandemic was a force majeure event, and a lot of suppliers put very flexible cancellation and refund policies in place and were offering things like future travel credits. Well, the pandemic was a force majeure event, and technically, under most force majeure provisions, there's no obligation to give a refund if there's a cancellation for a force majeure event. So it's not like it's so keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that force majeure. I'm going to get to the question about insurance in a minute, I promise. But the force majeure events, unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of your control. At a certain point, something is foreseen, right? So the war is happening in the Middle East. We all know about it right now. So that is a known event. That is no longer unforeseen, unpredictable, outside of your control. So if somebody, so it's not, so force majeure is not necessarily going to cover that. But again, the cancellation for a force majeure event, that's going to really depend according to the terms of the individual policy. You should talk to your insurance policy. That's part of getting all the information together for your clients so that they can make the decision. But check with your insurance policy, because I think really that's going to be when is cancellation allowed? Does it have to be a force majeure event? Can they cancel for reasons other than force majeure? That's all going to be governed by the policy or by the insurance policy. Hi, Luann. So all of the things about what you're mentioning, about what should be in your terms and conditions. Yes, if I did your terms and conditions, you have all of those provisions. I do terms and conditions on a custom basis. There are some things that some people have that other people don't have. There's also a lot of boilerplate. All of the things we're talking about today are part of the boilerplate. And can you share your client agreement? So if you are a client of mine, you already have, I've already sent it to you probably, because I include client agreements when I draft your terms and conditions. But if you are a Turn user, I've uploaded a template of a client agreement to the Turn community forms library. And so if you subscribe to Turn, you can have access to that if you want to see kind of what my language looks like. And if you are a client of mine and you don't have that memo, the workflow memo that I sent you back when we did your terms, shoot me an email and I'm happy to send you the current version of that. Okay, yes, this will be available online afterwards. So it's going to live on our Facebook page for the law practice, also my YouTube channel. I'm not sure how long LinkedIn handle stores it, but that should be there. Okay, when for a trip with many moving parts, has anyone had success with clients authorizing something like this for every charge? So, uh, so here's what I would say about that. I know people, this comes up all the time. Your clients don't want to have to log into your tech stack and authorize a payment each and every time. They get angry with that. They say, you've got my card on file. Just go ahead and hit the card for the final payment. The problem is, sometimes clients are stupid and they don't recognize the merchant of record on their credit card statement. They might accidentally do a chargeback, and then, you're going to have to deal with that, and it's going to be a pain. But also keep in mind that the credit card companies don't have any interest in making you happy. They are. I'm going to switch this because you've all seen my address long enough. So the credit card companies don't have any interest in making you happy. The cardholder is their customer, and so they want to make their customer happy. And so if the customer is saying to them, I shouldn't have to pay for this, that's a reason for them to side with the customer. And if you don't have a valid authorization, then that's just going to make it easier for them to take it out of your pocket. So I just don't think that it's a good idea to do like an annual authorization or an authorization up to a certain point in time. But that's just my opinion. Hello, there's a friendly name. It's nice to see you. On the client agreement form, do they need to sign and return? They can, but checking a box and returning a form is more than enough to create a legally binding agreement in many circumstances. So for your terms and conditions, you don't have to have them printed out and sign it wet ink on paper. You can build a form in Turn or TravelJoy or Travefy, or Jot forms or Vacation Creation or Vacation CRM or whatever you're using. You can send those forms to your client. That way they can check a box and return the form to you. The exception is if they're waiving a legal right. So it's one reason that I don't put social media provisions in the terms that I draft, because if you're telling people I get to use your vacation photos on my website to advertise my business, they're waiving a state law right of publicity. And those waivers of legal rights require a signature on a form. So, I mean, I've seen those in other documents that other people have drafted. I think you want to make it easy for your clients to agree to your terms. You don't want to require them to sign it. If they sign it with an electronic signature, that's fine. But again, I think you want to be easy to work with. You don't want to be rubbing your client's nose in a bunch of legal stuff all the time. What happens if the date of authorization is months after the charge because they delay returning the charge authorization? So I don't run the charge until I get the authorization. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, they authorize it months after you've charged their card. That I would look at your practice around that, because that seems to me like it's potentially creating liability for you. Suppliers who have payment links for clients to make payments directly. This comes up a lot, and I think that if the supplier is the one running the charge and the client is paying through the link, that it's the supplier's responsibility to use that magic language for credit card authorizations. But I have heard that suppliers are going to still require you to have authorizations. I don't think it's a bad idea to get an authorization if you can, but I would feel comfortable having an argument with a supplier if you sent the client link. I'm sorry, you sent the supplier link to your client, and then the client paid the supplier directly without you taking the credit card number. I think you've got a very, very strong argument that you shouldn't have to pay for it if the client later does a chargeback. because you didn't handle the credit card number. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, this comes up a lot. So what happens when you get authorization from your client, you go back and you reprice and it's gone up by 20 cents. Here's what I do in my agency on that. I get an authorization from the client that says, that they authorize a payment of, $1,000. Let's just say $1,000 even. And then I go back and I reprice the ticket, and now it's $1,020. Well, that $20 difference is pretty nominal. If the client is not okay, so for airline tickets, since you can void an airline ticket within 24 hours, I would just go ahead and put it through and then send an email to the client saying, the price ticked up by $20. If you're not okay with that, let me know, and I'll void the ticket and we'll look at other options. That's taking money out of my pocket because I have to pay the GDS fee for voiding the ticket. But the other thing you could do is you could just say, well, it's $20 in the interest of keeping the client happy. If they're not okay with that $20 increase, I'll just pay for that out of my own pocket. But they're not going to do a chargeback at that point. You'll send them a check for $20. But then you've got a paper trail back and forth. If they send you an email saying, yeah, I'm okay with the extra $20, that's fine, and then I would just go ahead and put it through. So if you've got an authorization that's close to the amount, and then you've got a paper trail of the back and forth with email to cover the balance, I think that's an argument I would be comfortable making on your behalf. But if it's a substantial increase, then I would just get a new authorization each time. Yeah. When does it make sense for independent contractors to get their E&O, their errors and omissions insurance? Well, I think an independent contractor is going to have to get their own errors and omissions insurance if they are selling under their own brand, under their own nameplate. So if they're selling under your brand, under your business name, they're probably going to be covered under your E&O policy. Check with your insurance company to make sure that that's the case, but that's the answer I've gotten from most of the insurers that I've spoken with about it. But if they have their own business name, if you're acting as a host agency where you are hosting independent businesses, they're going to need to get their own, and you're going to want them to add you as an additional insured party to their policy so that if something implicates both of you, you also have the ability to file a claim under their policy. There's nothing nefarious about that. It's not going to cost your ICs any more money, but it just ensures that you're better able to support them because you're also covered by the same policy that covers that. So frankly, even if they are operating under your brand name, they might want to get their own policy, E&O policy as well. But if you have a big host agency that has a policy that covers you and you're an independent contractor, you might want to get your own because you share that policy with other business owners, other independent contractors. If one of them has a claim under that policy and it eats up all the coverage limitations, there might not be a whole lot left for you if you decide you need to file a claim later on. So I would be careful about that. Hi, Cheryl. What are some smart things travel advisors have added? I'm assuming you mean in the client agreement. When I said, in my sample agreement, I have them agree to my terms and conditions, agree to my fee structure, and agree that they understand that insurance is available. I have clients who do a lot of school groups, and they have people check a box that says, I agree, I give permission for my child to travel, and I agree to the student code of conduct for whatever the school is. I've had people who, seem to have a consistent problem with travelers not looking at the documentation and providing confirmation that it's correct at the time they send it. So in your terms and conditions, you probably got, hopefully you've got, if I drafted it for you, you definitely have, a provision that says when the traveler gets their reservation confirmations, it's their responsibility to make sure that everything's correct so that you don't get that stupid call on the way to the airport where they're like, oh, I just looked at this, my name's misspelled. And then you have to go back and figure out how to help them when they're just about to check in for their flight. So some people put that on their client agreement because they really want their clients to see that, checking a box. I understand that it is my responsibility to review the documentation and make sure everything's correct. But it really just depends. Every business is a little bit different. So the client agreement is like the vehicle to get people to agree to the legal stuff. It's not so much the legal stuff. It's just, what do you want them to pay attention to? What do you want them to acknowledge? Um, so Sharon, hi Sharon. In the documents that I draft for you, there's a section at the very end for boilerplate where we have language that says that if they are going to try to sue you, they have to sue you in your own backyard rather than halfway across the country. There's language in there about this being a complete agreement, meaning nothing that you say to your clients in an email or a phone call undercuts or undermines your terms. That if there's anything in your document that's unenforceable, this would be a savings clause. That's what lawyers call it. That if there's anything in your document that's unenforceable, the rest of the document still holds together, and that you can go to a court and have it enforced by a judge if you feel like you need to do that. So that, all that kind of like legalese boilerplate stuff, the lawyer stuff, that's at the very end of the document. Okay. Are there any true cancel for any reason insurance policies out there? I think some of the trip protection stuff is actually cancel for, like, so I had a client who booked through one of the ALGV brands. She was going to Cancun, and she was just really, really uncomfortable traveling to Mexico because of what happened in Puerto Vallarta. She made that decision for herself. Like, personally, I don't think that it's a risk, but again, like, I'm not advising my clients on whether it's safe to travel. It's their decision to make. I just give her the best information that I have available to me, and she had the policy that would allow her to recover her trip protection, or to recover the full cost of her trip, including the airfare, as in the form of a future travel credit. And they spent a couple $100 when they booked the Cancun trip, and she decided they weren't comfortable traveling under the current circumstances. They're leaving in 3 weeks. She got the credits returned to her pretty quickly. I just used those credits to rebook them in Punta Cana, and she's going in 3 weeks. So she got the full value of what she paid back as a travel credit. So, and if she had had cancellation for covered reasons, I'm pretty sure she would not have gotten anything back. So some of those trip protection plans that the suppliers can put on, some of those will return 100% if you want to cancel just because you don't feel like going that day. Okay. Oh, and hey, Ryan. So Ryan answered the question, and then I duplicated efforts. So there you go. Suzanne asks, is it okay to tell the client if the difference is under X dollars, I will just reserve it. If it's over, I will contact you. You can, but I would, again, I'm not the one who makes these decisions about whether or not you're going to win the chargeback dispute. The credit card company is going to decide that. So if you can get them to authorize if you can get them to authorize the specific amount, and that amount holds, that's great. If it's a little bit over or a little bit under, I would say you're probably in pretty safe territory, especially if you're comfortable. The question I would ask myself is, if they're not okay with this new price, am I comfortable paying for the balance out of my own pocket? Like, if they authorized, $1,000 and it turns out to be $1,200, are you comfortable paying $200 out of your own pocket? And if your answer to that is no, then get a new authorization. If your answer is, I don't want to lose this space, I'm willing to roll the dice. You're rolling the dice. You just have to be prepared that you're rolling the dice. How can I contact you? Okay, so I am more than happy to talk to you about it. I will put up my contact information. Email is the best way to reach me. Sometimes people call me on the phone. I will tell you that I am almost never in my office because like the rest of the world, I work from home a lot these days. But also my phone goes to voicemail. My office phone goes to voicemail almost all the time. So send me an email at tcarpenter@carpenterlawgrouppc.com. PC is not politically correct. It's professional corporation. So tcarpenter@carpenterlawgrouppc.com. Nothing wrong with being politically correct. Everybody should be respected and valued. I have a strong view on that. Okay. How quickly do we schedule consults? We have a little bit of a backup right now. I am going to the Asta River Cruise Expo next week. If you're going to be there, please say hi to me because I never know what anybody looks like. But for terms and conditions reviews, we've actually got a consult video for people who really want to turn it around quickly. My calendar can get kind of backed up. My associate, Brandon Taylor, who is crushingly awesome. He's just the best, and he takes really good care of people. So if you don't do a consult call with me, he may have availability and shorter turnaround. But if you want to bypass the consult call because you know you need your terms and conditions, we've got a video that kind of gives you the basic information. So you can look at that video, and then if you have follow-up questions, we can kind of handle that by email. That might expedite things. And but don't hesitate to reach out if we can be helpful. Okay. Oh, so Brandon is great. Thanks, man. I appreciate the ringing endorsement. So, oh wait, Jace is here. Hi, Jace. Jace is part of my Uniglobe family, so I'm happy to see him here. Should we be placing a priority on trip protection or insurance? I put a priority on travel insurance, the full insurance plan. I explained the cancellation and refund policy. I explain the cancel for any reason stuff to my clients, and I say to them, really the only reason that I would go with the supplier trip protection, if the supplier trip protection has cancel for any reason, would be that it's going to be less expensive. If they really want to be able to cancel for, if they say to me, I've got an elderly mother and I don't know what's going to happen with her, well, that's going to be a covered reason under most policies. But travel insurance, true travel insurance, just covers so much more than trip protection does. You could do both, right? So if they, and there are all sorts of complicated things about which gets paid out first. But travel insurance, just trip interruption, trip delay, medical evacuation, lost or delayed. Like I had a client early, like right after we started our agency many years ago. We had a client who was on his honeymoon in Spain. His iPhone got stolen, and the cost of replacing his phone was less than the cost of travel insurance, like actual travel insurance that covered lost and stolen personal effects. So that is what I would prioritize insurance, but trip protection, if they're looking for a value on cancel for any reason, I would maybe add that as well. Can the client get both? Mary Jo is asking. They can. It just depends on whatever state you're in. In New York State, we used to not be allowed to sell cancel for any reason, and that changed during the pandemic. So now cancel. I mean, there are other weird things about selling travel insurance in New York, but now insurance. Traditional travel insurance companies are usually offer cancel for any reason as an add-on to their policy in most states. But under the travel insurance cancel for any reason, that's going to mean that the cancel for any reason is probably only going to be paid at 50%, maybe 75%. So you're going to want to be careful about that. What's the rule for sending receipts for each purchase? If you fail to send a receipt, could that be an issue for liability? Well, I mean, the authorization is what's really important. I haven't yet seen anybody get into trouble for not sending a receipt. I think it's certainly a best practice. to confirm that you've made the payment. Generally, if you send them their final travel docs or you send them a confirmation, a booking confirmation, that's going to function as the receipt, I think, in most places. Um, but definitely you want to make sure that they understand when the payment goes through. If you're using a tech tool, that can help you, obviously, because a lot of times once they've authorized a payment, they'll get confirmation that the payment is authorized. And when you go in and actually use their credit card to make the payment with the supplier, you can, like on Turn, for example, you click a button that it's been authorized and that it's been booked, and then you can send that to your client. I think that's definitely a good idea. So, okay. So I think we're right up at an hour at this point, and it looks like a lot of you have stuck with me for the entire time. So I am grateful for that. I'm happy to answer any questions if people need help. If you don't have a terms and conditions document, you want to square that away, by all means, reach out. But I hope this has been helpful to people. It will live on the YouTube page and our Facebook page for a while. And anything else you need, I'm a phone call or an email away. And, again, this is really scary stuff, but you can get out in front of this. This is stuff you can deal with. And so just get everything in order and sell travel and do your best to protect your clients, because the world is upside down and on fire. It is crazy out there, but you've invested a lot in your business. So make sure you're treating your business like it's an actual business, and you'll be fine. Thanks so much, everyone. And anything I can do to be helpful, Oksana, I will not be doing any sessions at the River Cruise Expo, but I will be there. So come find me and say hi. This is what I look like, rosacea and all. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.